Well, whatever the Minnesota Twins do or don't do in the postseason this year, the Cleveland Guardians can say they won the regular season series against the eventual AL Central Division champs. I don't know if you can hang a flag for that or a banner, but I'm sure you can ask for one somewhere. Maybe the Guardians can do that.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Banners fly forever, and the 2-year dominance of Cleveland's had over the Twins has been something to write home about in what has been, mostly an underwhelming season. They are on path to finish below 500. Didn't they lose the season series against the White Sox and the Tigers? So they're going to be, I think one of our commenters said they were heading into today's game were like 24-21 against the Central. So yeah, when you are in the worst division of baseball and you're below 500, that might be why you're not contending, even though you're in second place.
What would have happened if they played more 19 games against every team this year? Then would that have been worse for them?
Yeah, it seems like getting out of the Central was actually beneficial because for whatever reason, the Tigers ate their lunch this year. They could not get anything done against that team. The White Sox gave them struggles. They didn't do well enough against the Royals, who are just abysmal. I mean, the Oakland Athletics are a team that are doing Major League for real. They're doing the plot of Major League of getting the worst players possible so you can move the team to another place. They're doing that plot, and the Royals are challenging them for record. And 2 years ago, the Royals made a bunch of free agent acquisitions trying to move up. And I remember doing our roundtable in 2022 where there's literally people in there being like, yeah, I think the Royals could be third in this division. They're on the rise. So now that I've annoyed, but I do want to retract one statement. We've had a lot of Twin fans in here, and I do want to say I was wrong. They could potentially win in the first round because the Texas Rangers might be their first round opponent, and they're just free falling out there. Tom Petty is singing that team's motto. That Rangers team is, they don't even miss him. They're bad boys for breaking those fans' hearts. I am very tired. It's going to be a weird episode, but let's talk about a game.
Rangers, by the way, Toronto just caught them. So Texas so Minnesota might be playing the Blue Jays, which I wouldn't want that matchup. Not with that offense. No, although they've been struggling.
I mean, I'd much rather have the Rangers and the Blue Jays.
Abysmal bullpen.
I mean, everything's been kind of bad for the Rangers right now. They're just nothing is clicking for that team. They just really hit a hole and fell apart. So,
like you said the other day, the Guardians didn't face them at the right time because if the Guardians had faced the Rangers right now, both bullpens would be going out there trying to give the game away.
Today the bullpen was good. In fairness,
it was good actually.
Their job. But yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. Again, like I think the one thing we're already off the rails, but the one thing is, the bullpen's been a disappointment. It's been a complete disappointment. But at the same time, bullpens are so bad that sometimes I think a lot of people are always like, "Oh, the bullpen. It's like bottom 10 in baseball. It's one of the worst bullpen." It's not, because bullpens across baseball are rough. This is still a top 10 bullpen in spite of its struggles, because bullpens are not good.
They're not good. And as we talked about this year, they've all picked their spots to have blowups. That didn't happen today. You're right, the bullpen was good. Sam Hentges now has 16 straight scoreless appearances. Nick Sandlin even looked really good, actually. He had 2 strikeouts.
Best performance in a very long time.
He struck out 2 batters with 15 pitches and got the other batter out. That was the best he's looked all year for sure since the first half. And Clase had a 10-pitch ninth. So it was pretty easy. Although they don't get there without good defense. That's that. You've pointed this out multiple times about how the Guardians have really shifted to fly ball heavy pitchers for multiple reasons, right? Because one, most fly balls are you're going to have guys that give up home runs when you do that, of course, but most fly balls are harmless. There's less dependency on
luck,
batted ball luck, like BABIP and all that. And with the shift being gone too, it matters even more if you're getting the ball in the air more. And when you deploy an outfield that includes Ramon Laureano and Will Brennan and Stephen Kwan and Myles Straw, the one good thing they do is defense. Like, I want to talk about Chris Antonetti had a quote before the game, some pregame media availability about the offense, and I know we'll get a lot of Dolan's cheap comments for this, and maybe rightfully so. But run prevention is cheaper to find and easier to find than it is to find run production. So if you're not good at scoring runs, you better be really good at preventing runs, and that was kind of the story of this game. I mean, Will Brennan made another great catch. I'm trying to think who else had great defensive days
Will
today.
Brennan. It was Brennan, and you had the walk to Matt Wallner. Like this, they lose this game if not for defense. Gavin Williams, the rain delay kind of messed him up, but he walks Wallner. Then Will Brennan has the sliding catch, and then Myles Straw has the diving catch. Those would have both been doubles. So it's like Wallner scores. They win this game 3-2, if not for those back-to-back catches. Those two plays, like, if I'm going back, as someone who's told me I'm being wishy-washy, it's like the 3 stars of the game. It's really easy to be like, okay, Gavin Williams and Will Brennan, because Brennan also had 2 hits, and then you could probably say Jimenez. Yeah. I know, but I'm saying Jimenez would be the 3rd star over Straw, who didn't get on base. But it's like Straw's catch along with Brennan's catch saved this game. Like, that is the truth of the matter.
Gavin Williams also had a nice play too. He had a line drive come back at him that he grabbed. That was good too. So yeah, you're right. Defense, made all the difference in this one, because they didn't hit Joe Ryan, even though Joe Ryan was, through 89 pitches in 4 innings. He wasn't really that efficient. They couldn't touch Louis Varland, who looks really good out of the bullpen for the Twins.
Second time in a row they've done a nice job against Joe Ryan, right? Last time they got to him, that's 2 straight victories, isn't it?
Yeah. Did they face Joe Ryan last week in Minnesota? Was he hurt
last week? But I feel like I think it was the time before that they got to him.
Yeah, that might have been right before he went on the injured list, I think.
The best, I think. Yep.
Yeah. Will Brennan has been really hot at the plate lately too, and I've been really curious to see what's kind of behind it. What's that?
Because we're going to get in trouble because I'm talking over you, and everyone loves that. But I just want, before we move on from Joe Ryan, real quickly, be like, there's an example of the Rays blowing a trade. Every time, since people think the Rays are, untouchable, that Cleveland's going to lose the Savali trade because the Rays never lose trades, the Rays never mess up. Joe Ryan and Drew Stroman for Nelson Cruz, right? That is a trade that has not worked for them.
Yeah,
just had to throw that in.
Nelson Cruz, yeah, not great. Yeah. Before we move on to Will Brennan too, we should mention Gavin Williams. We talked about Tanner Bybee the other day and the velocity being down, and he said it was a tough day overall. Williams came out of the chute. Now, granted, he only pitched 1 inning his last outing against Twins, and he had a couple extra days of rest because they brought in Giolito, and they still pitched Curry. They had Quantrill back, so Gavin had a couple of extra days. He came out and he was throwing 97, 98. Like, he looked really good. After the rain delay, the velocity kind of dropped off a little bit. That's to be expected because, the rain delay ended up being close to like about 30 minutes to 45 minutes, I think. They didn't think it was going to be as long as it was, or that it wasn't going to rain as long as it was. But he was throwing darts early on in the game. He had some control issues, but the velocity was up early, which was good to see. And velocity isn't the end all be all, obviously, because for him, for Gavin Williams, it kind of is, right? Because he started to take off more when his velocity ticked up from 95, 96 or 94, 96 to being more 97, 98 when he made that adjustment. But getting to this point in the season where we worried about Tanner's yesterday with his where he's at recovering during the season, and Gavin coming off the knee issue, for him to come out and throw the ball the way he did, I think was at least very encouraging for the time being.
Yeah, it's really hard to judge his performance for me just because of the rain delay. Like, there's no one who we see go out and pitch where that doesn't affect them. And he wasn't quite the same guy before and after, but I think it's encouraging. I don't want anyone to say that I'm being negative here. I think it's encouraging. It's just hard for me to paint a full picture just due to circumstance.
No, I mean, the fact that he came back after coming out of after 1 inning in the Twins series at Minnesota and potentially having a knee issue that could have, hurt his season, he comes back and he looks, pretty good in terms of stuff. Obviously the control was an issue, and I have to go back and look exactly how many walks happened after the rain delay, but for all of those issues, no, he looked, at least healthy today. I think that's the one thing you want at this point in the season, with the division race being over and you're just trying to get to the finish line. Especially with 3 rookie starters, you want to make sure these guys all look healthy in their outings. And I would say, control issues aside, Gavin looked healthy in the outing, and that's what you want this time of year.
Agreed. Especially after, wasn't the last time out when the ball off the leg, or was that 2 times out? So either way, it was recent enough that you're just happy to go out and see him.
The last outing was where he had the knee tweak, where he he didn't catch a spike, but his knee came out from under him, he said.
Yes.
So
and
the fact he came out and showed no issues with that, and like I said, the velocity was good. To start with, I mean, those are all the boxes you want to check. I mean, we could sit here and have a whole conversation about Cam Gallagher starting and Myles Straw starting and giving away at bats in the 8 and 9 spots.
At the same time, they only had 3 guys get hits today, and one of them was Cam Gallagher. So
that's true. He did have one of the only hits today for whatever that's worth. Yeah. I want to talk a little about Will Brennan's offense here in just a moment. I want to talk about the offense overall and just some quotes from Chris Antonetti from that pregame availability on where the offense has been and where the offense is going. So stay tuned for that.
For a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure every part you need fits right away the first time around. Just add your ride to My Garage and look for the green check to note the part will fit or your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game. When you shop on eBay Motors with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time at all. And they'll help bring power to your game, something the Guardians offense has lacked this year, or has it? We'll talk about that later. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
Gonna have to wait a little bit longer to get back to Guardians action on Thursday night. It is going to be a 9:38 start Eastern time. That is going to be Cal Quantrill versus, we don't really know who's going for the Angels right now, I don't think, but that doesn't matter. You can listen to
Could be me or
all
you.
the action. Yeah, you can could be you. Could be you. You can listen to all the action on the Sirius XM app. Just search Guardians. Speaking of the Angels too, they placed Randall Grichuk back on waivers again today, because they're desperate for anybody to take his contract off of them at this point, so they can get under the luxury tax, so they can move their draft pickup. That is so sad. I'm sorry. How about the Oakland being
Max
pathetic?
Stassi didn't get them under after they pulled that junk with him.
I don't know. I mean, the quote from, again, this is Bob Nightingale's tickets for what it's worth, but they're hoping to get somebody to take Randall Grichuk's salary the rest of September. There are like 20 games left in this month for the Angels, and they're like, somebody please take Randall Grichuk's salary for September so we can get some salary relief. You are the Los Angeles Angels, and Randall Grichuk's not even going to be postseason eligible. So like, this is the second time they're waiving him. Like, how sad this? I'm sorry, the franchise is just very sad. Like, it could be worse.
I think it's just about trying to save more dollars. I think they're under.
They're being cheap.
It's just totally cheapness, and being like, we got no chance. So,
and their owner actively gets in the way of doing things. What was the trade a couple of years ago that they were supposed to trade for Jock Peterson?
Jock Peterson for Louis Rengifo, and they would have also gotten on Andy Pages in that deal.
Andy Pages looks like a really good player.
And then, and then the interesting, I mean, people really liked Rengifo at the time. Cleveland was supposed to be Rengifo.
Yeah.
Was going to be the major piece for Kluber if that had come together. So, I mean, just be thankful. Everyone should be thankful that their organization did not trade for Louis Rengifo.
Yeah,
it turned out better for every organization.
Yeah. Or David Fletcher, right?
Gosh, yeah. I mean, there was a time where I thought they would have traded Lindor for Fletcher straight up, and now that contract is bad, but BAD bad.
Francisco's having a very good year. He might be a 30-30 player. He's looking really good again.
Well, no, I'm
Will
just saying
Brennan.
that David Fletcher is not.
Oh, yeah, David Fletcher.
That's
a massive
no.
mess. Will Brennan is definitely on a hot streak. His last 41 plate appearances, 410 batting average, the last 12 games. 15 of his 16 hits are singles, though. And this is not to disparage Will Brennan at all, because I really was high on Will Brennan coming into the year, and I still think that he could be a nice outfielder. I think he's probably better than he showed this year. The stretch right now, though, kind of concerns me that even when he's going good, he's got a 12% strikeout rate, which is great, but a 2% walk rate, and his average on balls in play during the stretch is 457. Now his hard hit rate has gone up, and maybe power just never winds up being part of Will Brennan's game. I don't know. This year, all 5 of his home runs off righties, probably not a surprise. 720 OPS. That paints a picture to me of a guy who is probably a future platoon outfielder, which maybe was his profile all along. Maybe I kind of overestimated it. I'm willing to see and wait and see next year what comes of next year if he makes any improvements, especially in the plate discipline area. I think that's where, he's hitting well right now. Obviously, defensively, we know he's great. He's got a great arm. He runs the base as well, so he does a lot of things very well. I just want to see the plate discipline improve, and I don't know if he'll ever hit lefties, but yeah, he was. I mean, he didn't walk a ton in the minors. Yeah, he wasn't like he didn't chase in the minors. Like, he didn't walk a lot, but he didn't chase either. He walked enough to at least give himself a chance at the plate, and he's still, fine, like I said. But I definitely thought maybe there was more in there. Maybe next year there will be. He's still young enough where this is his first full pro season, so there might be more there. It's just maybe it paints a picture of a guy who is best a platoon outfielder. So the only starting outfielder next year for this team that you really feel good about being in the lineup every day is probably Stephen Kwan.
Yes, that's it. Are you encouraged he's going to find one, or are you more concerned that so many guys are falling back to earth in year 2, and that he already did not start from a high point? Like
Brennan or Kwan?
Brennan. Kwan kind of had his fall down and his issues this year, and he's still been very good. Don't get me wrong, but when you're looking at how many guys it felt like kind of had a year 2 regression, are you concerned that Brennan's year 2 regression could be, or are you hoping that he instead takes a step?
I hope he takes a step, because he, like you said, he hasn't started from the highest. Like, you can't base anything on what he did last September, obviously, but I mean, if he regresses from what he is right now, that would be even more alarming, wouldn't it be? Because where else does he go down? I mean, the plate discipline's already. He's not striking out a lot, but to be in defense, Oscar Gonzalez was not striking out at an alarming rate. He was striking out more, but not at an alarming rate. It was just very poor batted balls, and that I don't want the same thing to happen to Brennan, because that wasn't who he was in the minors. So I don't know where does he go down? Like, if there's a worse version of this, then it's definitely in trouble. And I know it seems goofy to sit there and say this with, like I just said, he's hitting the ball well. He was the reason they won the game today. He's had a 9-hit series against the Twins. So not like he's not contributing. He's doing well. And I don't want to sit there and people are going to say, really, this is what you're choosing to focus on today?
Yeah, I can already see the comments. But yeah, no, he's been better.
I'm just saying for the long term production, because I was somebody who came into the year much higher on Will Brennan, and I'm saying this as a compliment to him, that I think he's better than he's shown, despite how good he's been this series. I think there's more in there.
That's what we're all hoping for, is the kind of to be more of the guy that we saw last year, and not be so much the guy who we're seeing this year, where it looks like he caught a little bit of Oscar Gonzalez disease.
Yeah, it's just like I said, that like you said, that was disappointing, because that was just totally unexpected. I think we expected this to happen to Oscar, unfortunately, for nice as a guy he is, but nice don't always win you ball games. And yeah, I didn't think Brennan would be like this either. But hey, he's hitting the ball well right now, and hopefully that gives him some confidence to lay off some pitches. And that's the biggest thing is guys, like I said, we're not going to sit here and call him Josh Naylor, but I remember Josh Naylor and going back to Dribble Cabrera, guys throughout their career have to learn, when you make a good amount of contact, you have to learn just because you can make contact with everything doesn't mean you should swing at it, because you need to wait for a pitch you can do damage with. As Gilbert Cabrera figured that out at one point, Josh Naylor has figured that out. Trying to think, Tyler. I know I've interviewed Tyler Freeman in the minors in the past, and he's talked about the same thing. Who had a home run the other night too, by the way, to dead center in the blowout game. So that was fun. But yeah, it's a process when you're a young player, is learning which pitches. Yeah, I can hit that, but what can I do with it? And I think that's a process. I don't think that's something that just happens overnight. And just because you have, I don't know, contact ability and plate discipline don't always go hand in hand. That's kind of what we're learning with this Guardians offense, right? Is that they don't really walk a lot because they have a lot of guys who put the ball in play and they're not hitting the right pitches. So something to think about going forward. We talked about before. We'll talk about in the offseason. And we've got a quote from Chris Antonetti too I want to get to on the state of the offense this year and where it was last year and where he hopes it can go, and just some people that, maybe kind of perplexed by that. So we're going to play that when we come back. $9:38. If you're going to stay up late on Thursday, you can listen to the game on your Sirius XM app as Cal Quantrill pitches against the Angels to get that 4-game series going. Just search Guardians on the app. All right. I don't think you've heard this clip yet, Jeff, so I'm going to play it for you, and you can give me your instant reaction on Antonetti. This is Antonetti reacting to a question from Paul Hoynes, actually a really good question from Cleveland.com, asking about the lack of power the last 2 years and just how the Guardians might try to address this issue.
Well, the problem isn't power. I mean, the problem is we need to score more runs. I mean, last year without hitting for a ton of power, we did a good enough job scoring runs. We were more kind of middle of the pack. This year, we haven't scored enough runs, and there are different ways to do that. Power being one of them. I do think, you have to look at it. It's easy to just throw a blanket on things and say, this is what's happening. We try to look at it more at an individual level because there are different ways for guys to contribute and help us score runs. There are guys like Val's talked about where we think that power, is coming, and they've shown that in the minor leagues, or we believe they have the more capacity for it, and that will show up over time. There are other guys where that's unlikely to be a big part of their profile, and they'll add value other ways.
You want to react to that first? I've got.
I mean,
thoughts,
on a basic level, he's right. It is scoring runs, and however you can get there. But let's be honest, the easiest way to score runs is power and home runs. And I understand where he's coming from on a basic level. But this just feels kind of like a cop out to me, if I'm being honest. It's yes, you can, but when you are so power deficient as they are compared to the rest of the league, you got to do something, and you need to improve that. And I think we're seeing it is not, let's put it this way, it's not coincidental that they've been one of the worst teams in scoring runs and are also by far the worst team when it comes to power.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, I don't want to sit there and make more out of a random press conference quote than needs to be, because oftentimes in these situations, it's a lot of doublespeak. It's a lot of saying a lot of words without actually giving you any real substance, because that's what GMs do. That's what they are pretty much masters of. It doesn't matter who the GM is, what the team is. 99% of the time, you don't really get a lot out of those press conferences because it's just a lot of non-answers. And like you said, it was kind of a cop-out because it was a non-answer. It was, hey, we scored enough runs to win the division a year ago, and we won a playoff series. And I know some people are taking that as, okay, we just need to do what we did last year. And last year they were what? Still, I don't know, close to last place in power last year. Let's see. 2022 in home runs, they only hit 127 a year ago. So they were second to last in home runs a year ago. So, and we've said this multiple times in the show this year. It's not as if you have to be the Yankees. You don't have to lead the league in home runs. You just can't be bottom 5 and expect to be a legitimate World Series. Like, look at the teams last year who finished in the bottom 10 of home runs. The Red Sox, not a playoff. Did the Red Sox make the playoffs last year, did they? I don't think they did. Even regardless if they did, they didn't have a really good season overall. The Padres made the playoffs. They were bottom 10 in home runs, which is kind of surprising, actually. White Sox, not a good team last year. They fell apart. The Rockies, not a good franchise. Miami, power deficient last year. Tampa Bay Rays were the only team in there that I really look at last year in terms of home runs to finish the bottom 5. But the Guardians knocked them out in the first round because both teams couldn't hit anything. We had a 15-inning playoff game where the rule was a runner on second didn't even help either team out. The Royals stunk last year. The Oakland stunk last year. The Nationals stunk. Detroit stunk last year. There's the only team that finished below the Guardians in home runs a year ago. And the Guardians are going to finish last in home runs this year. So no one's saying, let's go the 3-2 outcome. Let's strike out, walk, or hit a home run, because that we've seen with the Yankees that doesn't work. That's even the Yankees approach. But you can't be bottom 10. You can't be bottom 10 in offense and expect to be a legitimate World Series contender. And he's right about saying you can't blanket and say it's just power, because there are other ways to do it for sure.
But I mean, let's be honest, it helps. Like, you can draw, we're able to draw all these lines. It's nice to say, but they built a team based on guys like Tyler Freeman, guys like Will Brennan, and the problem with this type is what I'll go back to. Like, why am I always lower on the Will Brennans, the Ty Freemans, the Francisco Mejias? This profile they have built, and at the same time, they're completely committed to it because they've also built a pitching staff opposite, like, because they don't like hitters who put the ball in play on the ground and have better batted ball luck. They've built their pitching staff to avoid guys like this, and they've picked out their hitters to be these guys that put the ball in play all the time. And if you keep putting the ball in play, good things will happen. But it is you're also a amount of luck going in. You're losing control. Again, I am no baseball GM, but when I play OOTP, and I play a lot, do not look at my Steam hours for that. I mean, I don't think you can go look at my hours, but it would be embarrassing if you look just how many hours I put into OOTP games over the years. You would really worry for my life in terms of what I'm doing with it. But like, 2-3 guys like the Guardians have a lineup of 9. I don't think I've seen the team really, because you got to have some secondary skill. You got to like walk. And their secondary skill was speed, and then they changed the rules to make it easier to run, and then they couldn't run this year.
To me, that's still the crazier thing to me. They're bottom 5 in terms of walks as a team, and you can't always control what the other pitchers are going to do too. But the speed aspect of it is what's most confusing. Is that was supposed to be what was going to carry them this year was the speed. So that's the most confusing. And again, I don't want to take more out of a 40. It's a 50-second clip, and from 9 minutes of talking to reporters today, and 9 out of the 10 questions.
You heard it here. Justin says Antonetti is dodging the questions.
Yeah, dodging the question. No, it's every press conference. Doesn't really matter how it's done. But I mean, to me, it sounds more like less about power, more that they need better hitting. In general, not just power, but you need better hitting in general.
Cleveland is 6th in stolen bases with 120. Last year for the entire season, they were 3rd at 119. So they managed one more stolen base than they had a year ago with the rule changes. Texas and Miami had more. So they're kind of just a little bit ahead of last year, a month ahead.
Here's the rule changes,
and you look at Atlanta's at what, 160, 163, Tampa 149, 135 for Arizona, 135 for Kansas City, 130 for Oakland. Now half of that's probably Esteury Ruiz, and that's about the only thing you can do. But I'm not bitter about the Sean Murphy trade.
Not at all. If you cut it off after May, because Cleveland did run well in April, and after April they kind of slowed down. They're 13th since May in steals at 83. That puts them middle of the pack. For a team that relies on speed and balls in play and running the bases to create more offense than not having power, I don't know if you can afford to be middle of the pack in that. And we've talked about it before too. The base running metric on Fangraphs, they're at 2.2. A year ago they were like at 14 or something. Yeah. That's taking extra bases. That's advancing 2 bases on a single, taking a sack, a sack fly, or moving up on wild pitch, I think is included in that stat. So all those things kind of add up to why the offense hasn't produced enough this year. I mean, like you said, today they won 2-1 because of of defense. And
I mean, it's
the bullpen,
really defense.
which
Yeah.
the
how they won a year ago.
Right. This was the Rays series, outside of the Sunday game. The Friday and Saturday games were very 2022 Guardians-esque, and so was this game against Minnesota. I think it has just come down to they haven't had enough of those games this year because of maybe not just the lack of power, but you can point to the base running. You can point to the defense hasn't been quite as good, and some of that's on hanging with Ahmed Rosario too long. And some of it is obviously on just not running, not being as aggressive as they were, and the bullpen's backed up. So same story as always.
Like I said, there's so many things that are weird to me with this team this year. One, recently, the fact, hey, first off, congratulations on Gavin Williams for not giving up a run in the first inning. But the lack of running, the fact that this team with the shift change somehow seemed to have guys who are suffering because they got rid of the shift as hitters, that they didn't adjust, somehow seem to fully adjust for these new rules. There's just a lot of things like, why was there nowhere, where was the urgency with this team all year? I don't know. Why was there no leadership? Like, it's a confounding mess of a team. Not to go super negative here at the end. I still have hope. I like a lot of the young places, a lot of the young players. I've been on record as saying, like, going into next year, I'm hoping that Manzardo starts the year at first base. And I look at it as this team needs 2 outfielders, and they have a chance to compete with what they have, especially if their starting pitching can come back. So I just want to pivot to a little bit of a positive after some of those other statements.
Yeah, there's work to be done. I don't know if you can guarantee the bullpen's got to bounce back. That probably has to be addressed in some way as well. But I'm with you. You get your second year of all those young pitchers and a second year for Bo Naylor, and you at least have a better defensive shortstop no matter who is playing there, whether it ends up being Arias or Brocchio, whoever ends up doing that. It looks like, by the way, too, as we wrap up and they're going to Los Angeles and San Francisco over the next several days. Looks like everyone's getting an extra day of rest. So what Bybee went on Monday? No, Bybee went on Tuesday,
right?
And he will pitch again on Sunday. So he's not getting an extra day. But at some point,
listed as pitching on Monday.
Oh, I'm looking at the email from the team today, and it says the 10th.
Okay, so maybe then that's probably better than what I've got. So
yeah, so he's not getting an extra day yet, but there's an off day next week, so it sounds like they're going to try to give everybody an extra day of rest coming up here soon. That may be how they spread things out with the rookie pitchers. So something to think about.
Tomorrow's going to be a little bit weird just because of games and us figuring stuff out. No matter what's happening, we also give some time to Peyton Batenfield, who we have not really had a chance to talk about with him leaving the organization, which is good for him. I'm glad he's getting that opportunity. I always root for the players, but we want to thank all of you for sticking with us and not jumping ship. I'm doing everything wrong because I'm tired, so I apologize. But I thank you all of our everydayers, all of our listeners. We appreciate you being part of the Locked On Guardians crew. And as always, go Guardians, go. Keep beating those Twins.